Why isn't Keir Starmer just reading out word for word what Simon Clarke said in the Telegraph today? And so he's sort of burying it under generalisations rather than using specifics.
And also, what I thought when I heard his first question is it was almost as if Keir Starmer was doing a review of what was funny on Twitter yesterday.
The Prime Minister's had quite a week, from endlessly fighting with his own MPs to collapsing in laughter when he was asked by a member of the public about NHS waiting lists. So I was glad to hear that he managed to take some time off.
Can I just say, I wanted to the Prime Minister, I'm certainly going to hear the Leader of the Opposition. Those people who don't want to hear, they can certainly leave, because that's who it's going to be, so get it in order. Some of you are wanting to catch my eye again. It's not a good way to do it.
Mr Speaker, I love this quaint tradition where the more they slag him off behind his back, the later they cheer in here. Keep it going.
And also, for this side, you can have a joint cup of tea. Come on,
Mr Speaker, I was glad to see that he managed to get some time off yesterday afternoon to kick back, relax and accidentally record a candid video for Nigel Farage. The only thing missing from that punishing schedule is any sort of governing or leadership. So was he surprised to see one of his own MPs say that he doesn't get what Britain needs and he's not listening to what people want?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, he talks about what Britain needs, what Britain wants, what Britain values. This from a man who takes the knee, Mr Speaker, who wanted to abolish the monarchy, who still doesn't know what a woman is, and who just this week, one of his front benchers said that they'd back teaching divisive white privilege in our schools, Mr Speaker. Looking at his record, it's crystal clear which one of us doesn't get Britain's values.
To completely rewind, what triggered Keir Starmer being interrupted by Lindsay Hoyle was his reference to the laughing at the face of NHS waiting lists, because there was this video that was posted online last week, but all was not what it seemed.
Not as it seemed, because it was a video taken by an off-duty Sky News cameraman. I love the idea that if you're a Sky News cameraman, you carry your warrant card, just in case you need to film something.
You could perform a Citizen's video clip.
Well, that is exactly what happened. The Prime Minister was on a walkabout. He was talking to a member of the public about waiting lists, an elderly woman who was talking about her daughter's experience of NHS waiting lists. And the woman said, you could make it all go back to how it was, to which Rishi Sunak made a hearty chuckle and in the first cut of the video appeared to then turn his back and walk away. A longer cut of the video from an alternative angle saw that Rishi Sunak chuckled, turned around and walked up the street with the woman in question. So if you were being a bit po-faced about it, and indeed lots of journalists were very po-faced about this video in the aftermath of it, and I shouldn't say po-faced because it raises an interesting question ahead of an election year that will be fought online, is Keir Starmer using a version of events there to attack the Prime Minister, given that this was a video that was cut, a lot of people say, misleadingly? Is he amplifying misinformation there?
That's a good question. Now, then he made this joke about taking time out of his busy schedule to record a clip for Nigel Farage. This is slightly peculiar. We're going to talk about it a bit later. This slightly peculiar website where you can go online and put your name in, or the name of someone else, and then they get a personalised video from Rishi Sunak,
in which he says, I share your priorities, immigration's too high, taxes have to come down.
Yeah, and the Guido Fawkes website got one for Nigel Farage.
Hi Nigel, like you, I think immigration levels are too high.
But we've tried to do one for me, and he didn't record the name Matt. When he sat there, presumably with like a book of children's names. Hello Aaron, hello Adam, hello Alan, hello Brian, hello Barry, hello Colin, hello... Yeah, apparently didn't get to Matt.
But it's amazing, nobody in the room, given this was Rishi Sunak's family home in North Yorkshire, no aide said, maybe don't do Nigel, because...
Or nobody said, you're the Prime Minister, surely you've got something better to do than spend your weekend going, hello Simon, hello Stephen, hello Terry, hello Veronica. It's quite extraordinary. But then we were talking about misinformation or certainly misinterpreting of events, or, you know, Rishi Sunak in that answer. I mean, normally that's the sort of thing he saves to a bit later on when we had his book to rear and you're the friends of the terrorists and all that. Really leaning in. Abolish the monarchy, takes the knee, doesn't know what a woman is, somebody wants to teach white privilege, that's proper old school dirt throwing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the kindest thing you could say about that line is that the Tories know how they want to attack Keir Starmer. That's not to cast any judgment on its effectiveness or likelihood to move the polls, but we have had, over the past couple of weeks, a very clear line of attack from Rishi Sunak on Keir Starmer, which is to say you're a lefty lawyer who sides with people who contravene British values in X number of ways, be that on culture or on national security. The problem is, in the week where Keir Starmer has thrown his arms around the RNLI and the National Trust and, you know, is at any given opportunity pictured in camouflage fatigues with British troops, it's trickier to make that stick.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, if we're already there at this stage, who knows we're going to be after 6 questions. Let's go back to the House of Commons. It's PMQs Unpacked. Question 2 from Keir Starmer.
He spouts so much nonsense, no wonder they're giving up on him. And even now, as his government crumbles around him and his own MPs point out he's out of touch, got no plan for growth, crime or building houses, the Prime Minister is sticking to his one-man Pollyanna show. Everything's fine. People should be grateful to him. The trouble is, no one's buying it. Does he actually understand why his own MPs say he doesn't understand Britain and that he is an obstacle to recovery?
Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, he calls it nonsense, but these are his positions, Mr. Speaker. Right? And he doesn't want to talk about it, but this is the facts. He chose to represent a now proscribed terrorist group, Mr. Speaker. He chose to campaign against the deportation of foreign national offenders, Mr. Speaker, just like he chose to serve the Right Honourable Member for Islington North, Mr. Speaker. That's his record, those are his values, and that is exactly how he should be judged.
Why isn't Keir Starmer just reading out word for word what Simon Clarke said in the Telegraph today? And so he's sort of burying it under generalisations rather than using specifics.
And also, what I thought when I heard his first question is it was almost as if Keir Starmer was doing a review of what was funny on Twitter yesterday, rather than saying the Prime Minister's former deputy at the Treasury, who knows him very well, has just said this. What does he say to that? Well, as you say, it's a bit of a melange, isn't it? I thought it was interesting, again, that rejoinder from Rishi Sunak, by the way, attacking Keir Starmer on his legal career. I wrote about this in the Times a couple of weeks ago and shared the maybe surprising view of some people in Keir Starmer's inner circle that they have all the rebuttals to this day need, that it won't wash with the public. Not a view universities shared. At the top of the Labour Party, Shadow Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood thinks it's very silly that the Labour Party make a lot of his record as a lawyer because you set yourself up for these attacks if you say I'm Mr. I prosecuted X or did all of the things you like. Inevitably, they'll come back with that. But yeah, you'd expect to hear a little bit more direct attacks. From Keir
You've got
Starmer
material
today.
there. Read out what a former cabinet colleague has said about the Prime Minister today. Concrete quote. What's your response to that?
I guess the difficult thing is that Rishi Sunak got a huge cheer when he walked in. You had basically the entire Parliamentary Conservative Party, including natural allies of Simon Clarke, on the right, lining up on WhatsApp last night to say this is stupid.
So you don't want to galvanise them necessarily.
Yeah, so you don't want to say, what do you think of Simon Clarke, and have the entire mass of Tory MPs say he's a moron.
It's not the sidelines, it's behind him that the fire's coming in, Mr. Speaker. And he can try and blame the Labour Party all he wants. The difference is, I've changed my party, he's bullied by his party. And has he found the time in his busy schedule to work out why thousands of parents are being told by their nurseries that they won't get free childcare that he promised them?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's see what his party is offering the country. It's right. So we all know, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have many ideas for our country.
I'm going to hear the Prime Minister.
Well, he doesn't have many, but one thing we do know, Mr. Speaker, is that
You don't want to push it, do you? No.
we do know that he's committed to his 2030 decarbonisation promise, Mr. Speaker, which they say will cost £28 billion. But I was reading about it this week. He says he's changed the party. One of his team called it an albatross hanging around their neck. That might have been the Shadow Chancellor, maybe, Mr. Speaker. But he said they're doubling down on it. All this ahead of a crunch meeting, we're told this week, for them to work out how they're going to pay for it. I can save them some time because we all know the answer. Higher taxes for the British people.
I feel like this whole episode of PMQs is like when people have those words on a fridge. And
What,
you just
and
sort
you
of
just move them
muddle
around.
up, just move them around.
And they make a semblance of sense, but it's not a proper sentence.
It's not really a real thing. Why has Keir Starmer gone back to asking about childcare again? And then he, having not really set that up or explained the issue or put himself on the side of parents anyway, he just got to said, oh, it's about your childcare thing. Is that working? And then he's ended up talking about green. I feel like I'm going mad.
The way this was explained to me, just as PMQs began, as Keir Starmer's approach, that is, was we're going on the chaos with a little bit of childcare. I didn't realise that was a description of their writing style.
And Keir Starmer had a line there, clearly a line written to land like a soccer punch. I've changed my party. He is bullied by his. It's very close to I lead my party, he follows his, which Tony Blair landed against John Major in 1995. Not long up, well, about a year after he became leader, when all hell broke loose in the House of Commons. And actually, Betty Boothroyd had to intervene to calm things down. But if that was supposed to be the killer line, he completely fluffed it.
He should have just quoted it directly.
Yeah.
Because he did during the budget recently, or was it a PMQs? Either way, he quoted John Smith on Norman Lamont saying Rishi Sunak was the man with the reverse Midas touch. Yeah. So he's not averse to quoting things directly, but maybe the delivery would have failed him anyway.
But if that's the line you want to land, you need to lay the groundwork for it. Like, again and again, he's been bullied by, whether it's Simon Clarke or Lee Anderson or, his own cabinet, whatever. Build that up. He's been bullied. I've changed my party. I've got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. You're being bullied by You can't just drop that in anyway.
I just have to say, political Twitter really likes it. Not that that's a measure of quality ever.
In fact, quite the opposite.
Well, because
are they the same people breathlessly saying Rishi Sunak was going to be gone by the end of the day last night?
Well, it's because they have all that knowledge at the forefront of their heads. If you're,
but he delivered it really badly. People aren't going to be replaying that in 30 years.
There's only one party that crashed the economy. They're sitting right there, and
Oh, Mr. Holmes, you've had your question already. Obviously, you don't want to remain for the rest of it. Yes, Starmer.
Here's Mr. 25 tax rises. And he's got nothing to say on childcare. Millions of families will have been listening for an answer, and they got absolutely nothing. He announced that scheme a year ago, claiming it would get 60,000 parents back into work. Only on Monday of this week did he notice there was some, in his words, practical issues with that. 8 weeks before its launch, parents can't budget, plan for work or make arrangements with their employers. And the Prime Minister's response is to say, it's all fine, it's the fault of the Labour Party. Is this merely a practical issue, or is it yet another example of him simply not understanding how life works for other people?
Mr. Speaker, we're delivering the biggest ever expansion of childcare in this country's history, Mr. Speaker. But while millions of parents will benefit from that, again, it's right that he should come clean with them about the cost that his plans will impose on all of them. He goes on and on about the Green Promise, Mr. Speaker. He says he wants to keep it. But he doesn't have a plan to pay for it. What he's really saying is he'll scrap the borrowing associated, but he wants to keep the £28 billion of spending. So, for all those working families who are benefiting from our free childcare, he should come clean with them now. Why doesn't he come clean with them now? Come clean with them now, and just be clear, his plans mean back to square one and higher taxes for British people.
I mean, all this reminds me. You remember we had Peter Dixon from the X Factor in? I think he basically just summed it up.
What a ruddy word salad.
I mean, I don't really know what Keir Starmer's landing on childcare. And then being asked about childcare, Rishi Sunak's responding, talking about the Green Climate Fund.
Keir Starmer's questions are very long. What I will say about Rishi Sunak is that you can see a through line to his answers, which is Keir Starmer doesn't share your values. His policies will bankrupt the country. he won't tell you he'll put up your taxes, right? You can at least discern an argument there, even if you might think it's tenuous or you might think it doesn't bear any resemblance to the world in which most voters live. It is a sort of coherent political attack. I'm not really sure you can say the same of Keir Starmer's. I guess you could say, look, while you're messing around in Westminster, here's what's going on in the real world, but it's not particularly sharp.
Yeah. I suppose there's also a risk with this childcare thing, because it's only just coming in. If you bang on about it too much, what you're actually doing is advertising the government's massive expansion of childcare. Because do you know what I mean? It's not a sort of existing thing, which it's not like rack concrete in schools or whatever, where it's a sort of culpability problem. You're just actually advertising that there are some teething troubles with the rollout of a major new expansion policy. I mean, obviously, you look at the polls, Labour 20 points ahead, maybe this stuff doesn't matter. But in the heat of a general election campaign, if the Labour Party can't form a coherent message on the day that a former cabinet colleague's called for the Prime Minister to resign and he's got in this pickle, yeah. And it goes to show the Tories are not going to go down without a fight, and they have got, they think, sufficient dirt and attacks on Keir Starmer to try and make it stick. Somebody just Harry in London says PMQs used to be at least entertaining. They're trying to be as naff as possible so that people will decide to get rid of PMQs altogether. Well, what will Patrick Maguire and I do on Wednesday lunchtime if that happens?
Probably have lunch.